This is the story of a gingerbread cottage. Once upon a time, deep within a dark and gloomy wood, there lived two children named Zhang and Marie. They were brother and sister, and they lived with their father in a tiny cottage at the edge of the forest. Though they had little, they had love and laughter. One morning, Zhang and Marie were playing outside their home. It was one of those days where nothing could bring a smile to their faces. So they decided to go for a walk in the forest, chasing butterflies and chasing dreams. They wandered deeper and deeper into the woods, but soon they realized they were lost. The trees seemed to whisper secrets in a language they didn't understand, and the shadows grew longer as if the forest itself was hiding something. "I'm scared," whispered Zhang, his lower lip trembling. He looked like a small and scared rabbit about to be caught by a cunning fox. But Marie, the elder sister, felt just as afraid. She knew that if their father found out they had disobeyed him and gone into the woods, he would be very upset. But she couldn't let her little brother know that she was scared too. So she put on a brave face and said, "Don't worry, Zhang, we'll find our way out. We just need to look for a landmark. Maybe if we climb that big hill over there, we'll be able to see the river and then follow it back to the village." As they walked, they began to hear the sound of birds singing and the gurgling of a nearby stream. The trees seemed to part, revealing a small clearing bathed in sunlight. And in the middle of the clearing stood the most amazing sight. It was a house made of gingerbread and sugar. The roof was covered with melted chocolate and decorated with colorful candies. The windows were made from clear sugar glass, and the door was ajar, as if inviting them to come inside. "Look, Zhang," whispered Marie, her eyes wide with wonder. "Maybe someone lives there who can help us." Without another word, they ran towards the house, hoping that their troubles were over. But when they got closer, they saw that the house was empty. There was no sign of life or sound of voices. "Hello?" called Marie, her voice echoing in the stillness. "Is anyone home?" But only the wind answered, rustling through the candy cane fences that surrounded the yard. As they explored the empty house, they noticed strange things. Furniture was covered in cobwebs, and the dishes in the cupboards were all broken. It looked like the house had been abandoned for a long time. And yet, as Marie turned to leave, she noticed a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. She turned back, but there was nothing there. "Did you see that, Zhang?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. But Zhang shook his head, his eyes filled with confusion. Just then, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Marie and Zhang jumped and spun around to face the door, their hearts pounding in their chest. "Don't be silly," Marie said, trying to sound brave. It was just the wind. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't true. Because as the door creaked open, revealing a pair of glowing red eyes peering out at them, they heard a raspy voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Well, what do we have here?" "Two lost children wandering in my garden." And then, as the door swung open wider, they saw a hunched figure silhouetted against the flickering candlelight behind her. The figure shuffled forward, revealing a face that was both terrifying and strangely familiar. It was the face of an old woman, or rather, it looked like the face of an old woman. For as she stepped into the light, they saw that her skin was a sickly green color. Her eyes glowed red, and her teeth were long and sharp like fangs. In a flash, she transformed into a wicked witch with a cruel smile on her face and mischief in her eyes. "Lost children make the best snacks," she cackled, licking her lips. "And you look so juicy." "I haven't had a nice snack since last Tuesday." Marie and Zhang screamed and ran, stumbling over each other in their haste to escape. The witch cackled loudly, enjoying their fear. She had waited a long time for some fresh prey, and these children looked delicious. With a wave of her magic wand, she transformed herself into a giant bird and took off after them. Now, Marie and Zhang were fast runners, but the witch was faster. In a few moments, she had transformed into a snake and was slithering between their legs, making it harder for them to run. She transformed into a swarm of stinging bees, but they ran on regardless of the pain they inflicted. Finally, exhausted and desperate, they stumbled into the gingerbread house and slammed the door behind them. The witch banged on the door, demanding that they let her in, but they refused. Soon her anger got the better of her and she kicked open the door. "You ate my house? You'll pay for that," she screeched. The door slammed behind them. They froze. The witch cackled and waved her wand. The air grew heavy with magic. She transformed into a ferocious lion and lunged at them. At that moment, Marie and Zhang thought that everything was lost. As the lion advanced towards them, its claws extended and ready to strike, Marie remembered something her father had once told her. "If you ever find yourself in danger," he had said, "don't panic and don't fight. Remember what your mother and I taught you about the power of love." Love, thought Marie, love is the most powerful force in the world. With a sudden surge of courage, Marie stepped in front of her brother and faced the witch. "Go away, ugly witch," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "Leave us alone and we won't hurt you." The witch was taken aback by the girl's sudden burst of confidence. For a moment, she hesitated, her eyes flickering with surprise. And in that split second, Marie continued, "You may think that you are powerful, but your magic means nothing to us. We have something that is much stronger than any spell of yours, and that is the bond of family." The witch snarled, her eyes flashing with anger, but she couldn't understand why her magic wasn't working. Confused and frustrated, she tried to attack again, but this time Marie and Zhang stood side by side, their faces determined. "You may be a powerful witch, but you will never defeat the power of love," said Zhang, his voice ringing with newfound strength. The witch was defeated. She had never encountered such resistance before. In a final act of defiance, she transformed into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. As the smoke cleared, Marie and Zhang looked around to see that the house had vanished, and they were now standing in the middle of the forest. They embraced tightly, knowing that they were safe now. Then they looked up and saw that the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. They knew they had to hurry if they wanted to get home before their fathers started worrying. Hand in hand, they raced through the forest, eager to be reunited with their family. As they ran, they could hear their father calling out their names, his voice filled with worry. When he finally saw them, he rushed towards them, enveloping them in the tightest hug ever. That night, as they snuggled in their beds, their father told them stories of bravery and love until they fell asleep. From that day on, Marie and Zhang were known throughout the land for their bravery. They never forgot the lesson they had learned in the forest, and they lived their lives knowing that the bond of family and the power of love were the most powerful forces in the world. And if you want to know what happens when Hansel and Gretel meet the gingerbread man, click here.